As someone working with individuals on community supervision, you may have asked questions before, like, why would they keep using when they could lose their freedom and end up in jail or prison? Or, why would they keep using when they could lose their children? It may feel very familiar to you to navigate situations where another person's actions seem irrational to you. You can't understand how a person can continue a behavior no matter what consequences they face. When you are asking these questions or facing these situations, you may have sought to fill in the blanks with reasons why some people behave the way they do when using substances. This is a normal human response to try to seek answers for behaviors and situations we don't always understand or seem irrational to us. Some of the reasons you may have come up with involve the person just not having enough willpower to stop, or that they don't have the moral character to behave differently, or it's their fault because they made the choice, or they're just a bad person. However, decades of research show us that these reasons are incorrect. Addiction is a brain disease that causes this irrational, hard-to-understand behavior. The brain on the left is someone without a history of cocaine use, while the middle and right are someone who has stopped their use. These brain scans demonstrate the impact that addiction has on the brain and how supporting individuals get to recovery can start the brain healing process. Throughout these modules, you'll learn more about the impact that addiction has on an individual, including to the brain and body, effective treatment approaches for individuals, particularly with opioid use disorders, and how you can play a role to help individuals with an opioid use disorder, also known as OUD. According to recent data, there are approximately 16 million individuals aged 12 or older who report heavy alcohol use annually, and about 36 million individuals who report illicit drug use. These are individuals who may be misusing substances, meaning that their substance use could be causing harm to themselves or their friends or family. Additionally, on an annual basis, approximately 20 million individuals aged 12 or older report a substance use disorder that includes illicit drugs and/or alcohol. These numbers are even higher when you consider the individuals who have been diagnosed with either a drug or alcohol-related disorder in their lifetime. Approximately 23 million individuals have been diagnosed with a drug use disorder in their lifetime, while about 69 million have been diagnosed with an alcohol use disorder. A substance use disorder is a diagnosable illness that significantly impairs health and function and may require special treatment. Further, a substance use disorder can be mild, moderate, or severe based on specific criteria, with a severe diagnosis commonly referred to as an addiction. Trends also show us that the number of deaths related to alcohol and drugs is around 165,000 per year. In the last several years, with the high rates of opioid use, the majority of drug-related overdoses are due to opioid use. Given these staggering numbers, the next few slides will help provide some information about what is known about factors related to substance use disorders and how it impacts the body and brain. There are several factors related to the development of substance use disorders. These are typically separated into three categories: biological, environmental, and individual risk factors. Examples of biological factors are mental health disorders, genetic makeup, gender, and the developmental stage you're at in life. For instance, those with mental health disorders are at a much higher risk of addiction. Examples of environmental factors are substance use in the home and by peers, the school, and the neighborhood. Many of these environmental factors are tied to structural factors, like a lower socioeconomic situation, and social determinants of health, like reduced access to higher quality education and healthcare. For instance, individuals who have easier access to substances through their environment are at a greater risk of addiction. Examples of individual factors are a family history of substance use disorders, history of trauma, lack of engagement in positive activities or school, and how a substance is used. For instance, individuals who smoke or inject substances are at a greater risk of addiction. While risk factors can arise at any point in an individual's life, adolescence and emerging adulthood are particularly important times to prevent later substance use disorders. Part of the reason for this is because of the neurological developmental process that individuals experience at these ages can be significantly impacted in a negative way by various substances. Substances that lead to addiction mimic natural chemicals in the brain that produce positive or rewarding signals, such as heroin. However, repeatedly triggering this response reduces one's sensitivity, leading to what we know as increased tolerance, i.e., needing more to get the initial effect, and dependence, i.e., needing a substance to avoid withdrawal. For individuals with addiction, there are changes to the parts of their brains that involve self-control, stress, and learning. These brain changes impact decision-making and motivation, i.e., response to rewards, in ways that can make an individual's choices seem irrational or difficult to understand for someone who hasn't experienced these changes. These effects create long-term changes, but there is evidence demonstrating that with time and recovery, the brain can start to heal. This video provides more information on the impact substance use has on an individual.
Scientists first began to understand addiction as a brain disorder in the 1950s. Doctors Olds and Milner, in laboratory studies of rats, found the parts of the brain affected by addiction. But then in 1994, Doctors Volkov and Shelbert, top neuroscientists, ran CAT scans of the brain that showed the effects of substance use disorders. Like other diseases, these scans showed it affected tissue function. There are two main parts of the brain affected by drug use: the limbic system and the cortex. The limbic system, located deep within the brain, is responsible for our basic survival instincts. So when you do essential things to stay alive, like eat, drink, find shelter, have sex, or care for your young, your brain reinforces behaviors that cause the release of dopamine from this region. That reward for surviving is also transmitted to the amygdala and hippocampus, which records a memory of that feeling, so we seek it again. This is our survival hardwiring. Addiction also affects this area, up here, in the prefrontal cortex, which is what separates us from other animals. This is where decision-making and impulse control live. When drugs or alcohol are used, they activate the same dopamine process in the survival center. And when use is repeated, that substance can hijack that part of the brain. This hijacker changes the brain and weakens this system to make it believe that the primary need for survival is the drug. In hijacking the brain, it can usurp those primary motivations: food, water, shelter, sex, and protecting our young. And the hijacker needs more and more of the substance to activate the same level of reward or feeling of pleasure, causing the brain tissue to become increasingly damaged with continued drug use. There are factors that put you at higher risk for the hijacker, including individual factors like genes and age of first use, and then environmental factors like drug availability. But if the hijacker takes hold, addiction is treatable. Advancements have been made in assessments, detox, treatment programs, recovery supports, and medications to treat addiction. Brain scans show that once in recovery, the tissue in the limbic system and cortex can get better. With your help, we can expand these innovations to help millions of individuals and families and ensure that addiction is treated as the medical issue that it is. Together, we can solve this. Join us.
Research shows a strong connection between substance use and involvement in the criminal legal system. Oftentimes, the cyclical relationship results in a pattern that an individual finds impossible to escape. Research supports that those individuals involved in the criminal legal system are more likely to face negative outcomes due to their continued use. Individuals who have a substance use disorder are more likely than the general population to become incarcerated, and, after release, to become re-incarcerated. Up to 85% of the people in prison may have a substance use disorder, or be incarcerated for a crime that involves drugs or drug use. Similarly, individuals on community supervision are more likely than the general population to misuse substances and have a substance use disorder. Some research studies suggest that more than half of those on community supervision continue using substances, despite the common condition to not do so, and that one of the most common violations on community supervision is for failed drug tests. Research reviews have demonstrated that supervision and control methods are not sufficient to reduce recidivism among those with substance use disorders, while additional research shows that those who have a history of substance use are more likely to receive violations and recidivate. Through the remaining modules, you will learn more about opioid use disorders, OUD treatment, and the roles that both community supervision and community providers can take to help an individual reach recovery. No matter whether you're the person supervising someone who needs and/or is engaging in substance use treatment, or the person providing the treatment, it's important to remember that every interaction you have with a person is a moment you could use to support them to work toward recovery. You'll learn more about this throughout the modules, but a few key ideas to keep in mind are: it's a myth that people must be at rock bottom before they can be helped. This is dangerous and contradicts what we know about addiction being an illness. The reason we hope to treat illnesses like cancer early is because early treatment increases the chance of success. To learn more about this, check out the videos and the additional resources. Both community supervision officers and community providers should take a strengths-based approach by using more positive reinforcement and incentives as compared to sanctions. For instance, if drug testing is a component of the individual's supervision or treatment, use negative results as moments to reinforce positive change. Always listen to the individual on supervision and what they need. There is no one-size-fits-all road to recovery. Everyone's path may look different, and your role is to help them navigate the road they're on. You can play an important role to help guide and inform the individuals you work with about what options exist to help them succeed. But to do that, you need to be aware of these options yourself. These next modules will help build your confidence to provide that support to individuals struggling with OUD.